One of the few places a Ukrainian expatriate could physically cast an absentee ballot was at the Ukrainian Embassy in Washington, D.C., and that's where CCTV's Sean Callebs was.
Yeah, to me, this was a very fascinating aspect of this. 45 million people living in the Ukraine, about 50,000 registered Ukraine voters here in the United States, and they were able to cast ballots in 4 locations: at a Ukraine consulate in San Francisco, Chicago, at a consulate in New York, and then at the U.S. Embassy here in Washington, D.C., where there are 6,000 registered voters in this region. Ukrainian Oleg Voloshin wants to show his pride by wearing an embroidered shirt traditional to his nation. Custom dictates that a mother craft one for her son to bring good fortune. Voloshin is one of 50,000 registered Ukrainian voters living in the United States. And by casting his ballot at the Ukrainian Embassy in Washington, D.C., he hopes to bring good fortune to his homeland.
So this is pivotal elections for Ukraine because this is our last hope, I would say, to change Ukraine for better, to make it more democratic and bring happiness to all people who live in Ukraine.
A small pro-Ukraine crowd was in front of the embassy in Washington's affluent Georgetown area all day, far from the turmoil in East Ukraine, where separatists kept some Ukrainians from voting. With Ukraine's light blue and yellow flag on display, there was a definite feeling which way voters leaned in Washington.
I don't like pro-Russian because I really think it's just shredding the country into pieces. But I really think we should consider their opinions.
It's very important, and it's a big step in history. And we hope that they will change life what we have now.
Viktor Nebesniuk is one of the official election observers, a Ukrainian volunteering his time at the embassy all day to make sure the vote is fair, legal, and goes off without problems.
Well, as you know, right now in Ukraine we have a lot of problems, and this election can fix everything. So everyone feels it's very important, and as I said before, a lot of people are coming, more than we expected.
Separated by distance, Ukrainians say they appreciate the opportunity to vote here. And by having a say in the presidential outcome, they don't feel as powerless in a conflict that to them hit home.
It means that we feel attached to our country very strongly, and we would like to show this by voting.
U.S. President Barack Obama weighed in on the historic election, praising voters for turning out in Ukraine despite threats of violence and violence in areas. Obama says the election is an important step forward to unify the country and to reach out to all its citizens. And he goes on to say the U.S. is looking forward, Asiye, to working with the new president.
So, Sean, you explained how the process in Washington, D.C. and the embassy works. How does it work, or how did it work for Ukrainian nationals in other parts of the United States? How did they manage to vote?
It's a good question because not all Ukrainians live in these 4 cities.
Right.
For example, this morning a bus came in from Cleveland, Ohio, overnight drive all the way down to Washington, D.C. Another bus came in from Philadelphia. But it's not just by geography. And if you lived in Alaska and you were a Ukraine registered voter, you didn't vote in San Francisco, Chicago, you had to come all the way to Washington, D.C. So it is not a solution to all the problems, but it certainly made a lot of Ukrainians feel closer to home today.
All right. Thank you so much, Sean Callebs.